Living in Vermont, how you get your heat is a big deal. On-grid or off-grid like the house I grew up in. The primary heat source for our house is our wood cook stove. Originally when my parents built the house, they got a small heater-only stove. But about 10 years ago we got this wood cook stove and have loved it ever since. It is about the same sized firebox as the original stove and can take the same amount of wood and doesn't need feeding really any more often. We specifically got this particular stove because of its large sized wood box compared to most wood cook stoves which have a very small wood box. One of the advantages we've noticed with this stove, due to the more circuitous path of the smoke, is that it heats up the air much faster than our old stove. However, it doesn't heat up the masonry chimney heat sink we have, which leads to needing fires more often than our old stove. But if we get home from a long trip, it heats up the house 3 or 4 times as fast as our old stove, which is a real advantage. And I think it's much better to have more frequent fires than to have to wait for hours for the house to heat up when we've just gotten back from a trip during the winter. With the exception of the coldest days of the year, we generally only need 1 fire a day. We let that fire go for an hour or two, and that heats up the house enough, and then we can just let the house sit until we need another fire about 24 hours later. When we get closer to the spring, the passive solar in the house heats it up enough that we maybe need a fire only every other day. Our wood use, which has not changed with the change of stove, is about 1.5 cords of mostly softwood each year. This equates to about 1 cord of hardwood. We store 2 years worth of wood in our woodshed to make sure we have enough dry wood, and that means we never worry about running out of wood in the winter. Designed into our house, we have a way to hand wood in from our woodshed directly into the house without having to carry it through the rest of the house. This means that we keep the house a lot cleaner, and it's much faster than carrying in individual loads of wood. These are our solar hot water panels. It's a pumped system with the pump directly connected to the photovoltaic panel and provides radiant heat through the floor of our house, as well as heating our hot water. The tarps are covering the panels because otherwise the pump couldn't circulate it fast enough and they would take too much heat, causing them to steam up and fail for the day. This would cause no hot water to be had. In the winter, when we also want more heat into the house, we remove the tarps. These panels are facing south towards the sun. We have intentionally put the photovoltaic panel on the east side, so in the morning it is the last thing to get hit as the sun progresses, so that the water and propylene glycol mix can heat up some before it starts to pump. This also means it continues to pump in the evening when the sun has left the solar hot water panels. When the propylene glycol comes in, it is first pumped up through the heat exchanger to our hot water system. It then comes back and we have switches down here which we can choose to send it through either kind of deep floor or just subsurface below our floor. Even in the summer we do send it through the deep floor for 2 reasons. One is to make sure it's cool enough before returning outside, and the other is to help with the mold issues that we have in our house, trying to make this cement slab not so cold so the water doesn't condense as much onto it. We have some leaks in this system which we are always trying to fix, but we still have them, so we have some pans and a bucket out here to try to catch them. This system does not work super well and needs constant babying, letting off steam pressure or just messing with it, checking the temperature, making sure it's running. Just a lot of work. It really isn't a perfect system. This is one of the things in our house that really would do the best with some improvement. This pump, which is directly powered off the photovoltaic panels next to the solar hot water panels, isn't going right now because there isn't enough sun on those panels to make it go. But when it is going, it is very loud, which is one of the big annoyances for making videos for me, because when this is going I really can't film any audio in the house. And I can't just unplug this to stop filming, because if it stops circulating the water and propylene glycol mix, the water will turn into steam out by the hot water panels, and that will cause a blockage, which means that it won't be able to circulate again until those steam bubbles are removed from the system, which really only happens at night when it's cooled down enough to recondense it. Our house was also designed to take advantage of the sun with passive solar techniques. We have a lot of windows on the south side of our house and only one on the north side, just to give light to what would be otherwise a dark area. The overhang of the roof and the solar panels are designed to block sun in the summer when we don't want any extra heat, and let lots of sun in the winter when we want all the heat we can get. Though heat from passive solar isn't quite as definable as that from a wood stove, we do definitely notice its effect. On sunny winter days, we can sometimes go without a fire just because of the heating due to the sun. It also really helps in the shoulder seasons. We have much less frequent fires in both the fall and particularly the spring when there's more sun than a typical house heated by wood would have. It is the design and insulation of our house, which I will cover in the next video, that allows us to heat it so easily. We keep it above 60 degrees basically at all times we are home, which is quite comfortable for us, even though it's much less than most people keep their houses. If you have any questions about what I talked about in this video, please leave them in the comments and I will try to answer them as best as I can.